G'day, it's Seamus from the Whisky Club, and I'm here to talk to you about a few tips and tricks to get the most out of your dram. So, first and foremost, pick a fantastic whiskey. I've got in my glass here a funky little single cask we've been experimenting with. Obviously matured in a sherry cask, it's bringing a lot of richness and a lot of character. Great place to experiment with step number 2, glassware. Now, glassware, we've got 3 options. I've got 2 in front of me. Your third option is a shot glass. Now, that's an option to really not savor the whiskey. That's for when you're out having a party, just firing it back, but it's not going to give you a chance to, I guess, appreciate the nose of the whiskey and to slowly enjoy the palate of the whiskey. Now, more conventionally, you've probably got something like this at home, a little tumbler. Now, probably the most common whiskey glass in the world, obviously gives us a great opportunity to savor the whiskey, to nose it, to appreciate it. It's still going to give us a fantastic drinking experience. And if you're ever drinking with ice, obviously that's going to be the easiest place to do it. But place number 2 is going to be your Glencairn. And here I have a crystal cut Glencairn that the folks at Glencairn actually make exclusively for us here at the Whisky Club. Now we've got our glass, we can move on to the next step. Now that's appreciating this fine whiskey. Now there's a few tips and tricks that you can always pull out to really get the most out of your insight from this whiskey. And step number 1 is always going to be sight. We drink with our eyes, there's no shame in that. And honestly, this whiskey looks absolutely gorgeous. So just by holding that up, we can tell, 1, that whiskey's seen a lot of cask influence, but 2, as soon as I've done that, anything I say to you about whiskey from this point onwards looks like I really know what I'm talking about. So if you ever want to impress the room, do that, make some strong assertion, and you can get away with anything. Now, these things carry a little bit of weight, but really the value they're delivering is in that unique design. So it's got this bulbed bottom and this pointed top. And what that's going to allow the whiskey to do is just build up vapors here that then direct it to your nose. And it gives this more intense nosing experience and obviously still a very easy drinking experience. So if I nose that there compared to, say, this glass, I'm immediately getting more aroma out of this just because it's directly being pointed towards my nose. And it allows me to do this funny trick of tilting that on a 45-degree angle and pulling extra nose notes out of the whiskey. So I can now, from the top to the middle to the bottom, pull out a little bit extra from the whiskey. So if we jump into nosing, the main trick that we're going to play with here is, 1, there's no wrong way to nose a whiskey unless your nose gets wet. But if you can appreciate those aromas, it's going to be a fantastic experience. But if you can appreciate them as much as possible, why not do that? So 45-degree angle, as I said, we've got these vapors bulbing here, and now they're coming out of the glass here. But up here at the top of the glass, they've actually got the furthest to travel compared to here at the bottom, where the rawness of the spirit and that barley character is going to show a little bit more. So if I nose that now, on the bottom of the glass, I'm still getting some of that richness, some of that funk from the spirit from this whiskey. In the middle, it's still got some of that funk, playing with a lot of that sugar, and now it's starting to sweeten up a little bit. And then at the top of that glass, I'm really seeing a lot more of that cask influence. So this being a sherry cask, I'm starting to see a lot more brown sugar, a lot more berry notes, a lot more fruits, alongside what was a very funky, chewy spirit. So it's really built out this drinking experience, or this nosing experience, where I can appreciate each layer of the kind of whiskey and the way it's been built. There's been many, many whiskeys over the years where we've just sat down, savored the nose, and it's not till 20 minutes later that we finally get to drinking it, because there's just so much layers, so much complexity there. So nose is always step 1 on identifying a fantastic whiskey. Second is obviously tasting. This whiskey tastes spectacular, but what this glass needs to do is get liquid to my mouth, and that's exactly what it's done there. But step 2 is going to be really savoring that whiskey. So here we're really appreciating. It's a fantastic tasting whiskey, goodness me. We're really going to take the time to appreciate this whiskey. Something like this has taken masters of their craft years to produce, and we don't want to consume it in 2 seconds. We want to appreciate it and savor it the way they intended for us to. So we're not here to be pretentious, but we're here to enjoy things. So when it comes into our palate, we want to get a very distinct experience. And this is something that I got taught by Rachel Barry years and years ago, was when you're digging through a whiskey, you want to have a distinct front, middle, and back on your palate. So the front, It's where we're going to start to see some of the spice, some of the citrus, some of that sweetness, but on that white sugar end of sweetness. The middle, that's where we start to feel that texture, and we'll return to texture because it's a characteristic of whiskey that's not talked about enough. But also we're starting to see more of the fruits, more of the kind of richness, and then the back of the palate or the finish, that's where we start to see the lingering, the brown sugars, the dark, the decadent. And a really well-constructed whiskey should have something that represents each of those stages and represents as well. So what we're going to do here is just have another little sip of this whiskey. And this being an older sherry cask, immediately we get some of that spice from the sherry and that European oak on the front of the palate. The mid palate is showing those fruits. I'm getting kind of an orchard of nectarines and peaches, but kind of baked peaches because this has got that caramelized characteristic. And then on the finish, that's really where the funk of the spirit's enveloping, but also that richness of the sherry. I'm getting this cherry, this raisin, this fruit cake just building at the back. There's one last trick on that experience where if you're getting that kind of bolder character floating in the back of the throat, that decadence, if you give us a big exhale as that's going through, you're going to have that kind of go into the sinuses and envelop, and it'll become this really rich experience. I mean, even now as I'm speaking, it's still rolling through the back of my throat. So let's try it again. And there it is, that brown sugar's just ripped through. I cannot help but chew over it in my mouth. Even though I've got no liquid in my mouth, I cannot help but chew because it's so decadent. Add that to the next step of the whiskey tasting, and that's the texture. So we've had this amazing sweet feeling, tastes amazing. Suddenly we're also enjoying this viscous texture, and that can really be chalked up to a few things. At the Whisky Club, we very proudly ensure that our whiskies, as much as possible, see as little involvement. So they're often non-chill filtered and they're no color added. They're delivered at a proper ABV, so we want to really savor what is pure in that whiskey. Now that I've savored this whiskey, I can still feel it rolling through the back of my palate. It's time to really just sit on it. Now, as I said, there's so many drinking occasions, and sometimes you do just want to be at a barbecue, not thinking about a whiskey, but something like this is a single cask from 1998. It's very much worth just sitting and chewing over and savoring. And that's really, I guess, what we're hunting for at the Whisky Club. So we would encourage you with any of the whiskeys that we send you to please just try this exercise. Get into the nose, try the layers, get into the palate, have that long exhale, have that chew, experiment with it because it's going to deliver a really unique drinking experience. The final side of it, and this is where you can take power into your own hands, is often at the Whisky Club, we like to deliver whiskies at an ABV that really carries the weight that the distillery wants to deliver. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best drinking ABV for you. So we encourage you to add water to your own measure. Now, if you want to be incredibly precise in your water adding, so you can repeat it whenever you want to try again, we actually have a calculator on site that will help you work that out. But today we're just going to do this with a measure with the heart. Now, a little teaspoon, a little bit of water, just drop that in. Now, that's just broken down some of the oils in there. It's watered down a little bit, but it's also just changed the drinking experience. So suddenly, that's brightened that right up. That's given it a kind of a white peaches note. There's some caramelized sugars that are softening a little bit, but the fruits are opening up a lot more. And even though that ABV has just gone down incrementally, it's enormously softened the experience on the palate without destroying, I guess, the richness of the whiskey. And that's something that we're hunting for every time we're hunting for a whiskey. So couldn't encourage you more to, after you've enjoyed it and experimented with it at cask strength or at the strength it's delivered to you at, just play with that water a little bit. The last things I need to leave you with are, one, tasting notes. They're incredibly helpful. Enjoying a whiskey and being able to put words to it is enormously valuable to, I guess, appreciate it fully. But there's no such thing as a wrong tasting note. At the end of the day, it comes down to, do you like this whiskey or not? And I have to tell you, in this case, I very much like this whiskey. It's fantastic. Alongside that, chew your whiskeys, savor them, because we put years of work into delivering them to you. And yeah, other than that, we just have to say a massive cheers to you from the Whisky Club.